All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. The 5th of Iyar, Yom Yom. The Alter Rebbe received the following teaching from the Tzaddik Reb Mordechai, who had heard it from the Baal Shem Tov. Here is the teaching. A soul may descend to this world and live 70 or 80 years in order to do a Jew a material favor, and certainly a spiritual one. My kids had a song when they were in camp. For 70, 80 years, the neshama wears and tears, just to do a teva for another. Thank God with all your heart, for every Jew really is your brother. Okay. So we'll go to the Tanya. See what the Tanya has to do with that, or what that has to do with the Tanya. Lessons in Tanya, 5th of Iyar. We're holding here on bottom of page 661. Lessons in Tanya. Oops. Kuti Amorim. We're holding here the 5th of Iyar. 126. Page 126, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. Behine, behold, pay attention. Beis bechinus ha'avasenu, the two levels of love that we've been talking about. These are the embedded natural loves that, one, he is our life. Number one, God is our life. And two, he is our Father. And one of the things that he hasn't said, but is said in other places about the contemplation that he is our Father, just like a parent sets aside his or her mother or father own needs for the needs of the child and will do anything for the child, so Hashem has set himself aside. He's totally put himself aside. In fact, that's the language of Kabbalah that describes the Tzimtzum Harishon, the first contraction. He took himself ala tzad, to the side, his allness, he took all to the side, and he created an empty space into which he will give and conceive and give forth the creation. He put himself aside for the sake of the creation, like a parent puts himself aside for the sake of the child. So these two levels of love, he is our life and he is our Father, which we call they are natural, embedded in each and every one of us. Even though they are an inheritance to us, they're part of our spiritual DNA, so to speak. From our fathers, from our forefathers and our foremothers. And they are like, as I said, natural, the nature of our souls. And I've brought to the table more than once the Hasidic in drush on the word teva, which is the same word as tuba'u. Tuba'u is the word that's referred to the chariots of the Egyptians were tuba'u be'yam suf. They were sunk into the Yam Suf. So we have something sunk deep, deep, deep within us, in our nature, which is these two aspects of loving God, that he is our life and he is our Father. It's part of our nature. Like a child knows his mother and father and recognizes them even way before he can understand that they're mother and father. There's an instinctive, natural connection to them. So those two levels of love, those two embedded levels of love, and also the fear which is included within them, because in the theme of Sfiros HaOmer, all the Sfiros are inter-included one with the other. And we expect the lowest level of fear, which is, we've explained many times, to separate. The fear to be disconnected from your source. That's the flip side of the desire to be connected with your source. Who is our source? Our source is our true Father. May he be blessed, Baruch Hu. These two levels of love, that's his subject. They are not called, these two levels of love and fear, the natural levels of love and fear, are not called natural, and here I mean sunk, meaning embedded in us. When are they embedded in us? Only when they're held in thought and in the hidden reaches of our even when they're held in, only when they're held in thought and in the hidden reaches of our heart. In other words, like a precious jewel while it's still buried in the ground. The oz, and then when it's still tuba'u, sunk, natural but sunk, buried in the ground. So where do they exist? Where does this come from? What's the source of this? We're going back to the levels of worlds. We have Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, right? Bia, Oilimus Bia, the lower levels of worlds, Atzilus being above in a world of its own, so to speak. Very different characteristics, which is not necessarily now the time to go into it. But these hidden levels of love, we have Bria and Yetzira. They're down in the levels of Yetzira. And from there, from the lower level, it's like mining a precious jewel. From there, the Torah and the mitzvahs come and are raised up because of this love that's hidden deep down in the lower levels of our soul, the natural, deeper levels of our soul. This is when they were what it was called talumis liboy, when they're hidden in our hearts. Now, when we bring them into revelation, we bring them into talum, but his galus liboy, revelation in our heart. That's called the love of desire. In other words, a person can operate with a sort of, we call these people, remember there's in a very light way in America, we refer to, I'm a Jew in my heart, meaning, I like delicatessen and I go to Shul and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Well, yeah, that is an expression of cultural and even spiritual Judaism, but it's still not very broad. It's not well hewn. The jewel is still in the ground. It's not yet come up and be carved into its facets. When it comes up into the revealed parts of the heart, and one's yahadus, one's Jewishness, one's nefesh elokis is heartfully experienced, so that's called ra'usa deliba, the desire of the heart in the Zohar. Umakamon, and its place, it rises up a level, bubbles up from Yetzirah into the Yud Spheres of Bria, the higher level. And now from there goes up one's Torah or mitzvahs. And there's a different quality of Torah and mitzvahs, right? The Torah and mitzvahs we do just because I'm a Jew. Yeah, and the Torah and mitzvahs that I do because I'm a Jew who has an inflamed heart of awareness of and desire to cling to Hashem. It's a different experience. So it's a different experience for us down here below, and it's a different experience to godliness up above. It rises up higher in the spheres. It rises up higher. It's and it brings up the Torah and the mitzvahs, habos machmosim, which is coming as a result of doing the Torah and mitzvahs with a revealed love or a revealed awe or fear. Because of the fact that this love, these two levels of love, which had been tuba'u, sunk, and are sunk in our nature, are now coming out in an expressive way, sort of above ground. They're coming out, they're going up from the Helam v'Hester of the heart, from the Helam v'Hester Halev of the heart, El Bechinas Giloy, into revelation. Hu al yedei hadas. And how does that happen? Through das, that part of the brain which connects Chokhmah and Bina with the emotions. It comes through das, through understanding, through knowledge, and through connection. Das meaning primarily hiskashrus, connecting our minds with our deeper levels. And that brings up the fire, the flame. Al yidei hadas, v'dekuas hamachshavas b'choizek, and by implanting this in one's thought in a strong way, v'hisbaininus hatsuma, and utilizing one's quality of contemplation, meditation, which is called hisbaininus. Hisbaininus, if you look inside the word hisbaininus, is bina, understanding. And with a strong level of understanding, ma'umka deliba, from the depths of the heart, yoiter v'tadar, more and more continually, ba'ein so baruch hu, in the thoughts and the contemplation and the meditation in the infinite one, blessed be He. Echu chayenu, how He is our life mamish, v'avinu hamiti, and He is our true Father. In other words, that reality that He is our life, right? We have no life if God were to stop breathing life into us. And He is our Father, and that He's put Himself aside for us, for the entirety of creation, and specifically for us down here below, to make a dwelling place from Him below. That's implanted, but it's deep in our nature. And it comes up, when it comes up higher and is expressed, there's a flame and there's an excitement about it. And this is known from what's expressed in the Tikkunim, in the section of the Zohar called the Tikkunim, that in the level of Bria, the third level up, Asiya, Yetzirah, and Bria, there rests, or literally nests, the supernal mother, which is Bina, Shehu, his baininess, be'ornein soborhu, which is a contemplation and meditation in the infinite light, which is Chaya Chayim, who is the life of lights, Baruch Hu, Ukamaima Eliyahu, and then the saying of Eliyahu in the Zohar, Bina Liba. Bina is the heart. Uba Halev Mevin. In other words, contemplation and meditation bring the heart to a revealed level of understanding. And not only that, but not only that, but also these two levels of love, right? Again, that He is our life and He is our Father. These two levels of love, Hanal, in Kalulas min bechinas avarabba, they actually include in them the highest level of love. Remember, when we started this topic, we talked about two levels of love. Avos Olam, the love which is called the love connected with the world, and Ava Rabba, the great love. The love connected with the world is the love that is aroused by contemplation of the infinity and the intricacy and the infinite intricacy of the creation, and brings a sense of wonder and tremendous yearning to be encompassed in that allness. It's Avos Olam, from contemplation. And Ava B'tainugim is a love of delights, like when you're there and you're tasting and feeling and experiencing the pleasure. Now he tells us that these deeper intuitive, not intuitive is not right, natural, right, sunk into our nature levels of love, have a deep connection with the highest level of love. And we'll explain why in a minute, which he doesn't explain in the page, but I'll explain why in a minute. Has a deep connection with the Ava Rabba V'Gedoyla, and it even rises above this natural, deep, sunken love, rises above the level of love that comes and fear that come through intellect, which those levels of love which come through intellect, the levels of love which we come through understanding, were called above by the name Avos Olam, by the name of love of the world, the love which comes from contemplation. So we have on top, I'm explaining now outside, we have on top Ahava B'tainugim, that you're at the highest, deepest levels of one with Hashem, in the sense that you're delighting with God and you're in God's place. And then we have the lowest level of love, the love which is sunken deep in our natures. And he says that this low level of love actually includes that highest level of love, even skipping the middle. The reason why, number one, intellect is in the middle. And intellect is not where you find God, really. Intellect can help you arouse your connection with God, but God is essentially, by upper hand, totally above intellect, right? Another way of looking at that is it's saying it, we'll say in English, is he's totally deeper than intellect. Now, deeper implies down in the ground. And the mashal that's given in Hasidus, which I think explains this well, I'll let you decide if it does or not, is a precious jewel. A precious jewel, where does it start its formation? Where will you find it? You'll find it only by digging into the ground, deep, deep, deep. You'll find the diamond. But the diamond's in the rough, right? When you take that diamond and you cut facets in it and clean it, it becomes part of the crown of the king. So the deepest, there's an actual expression in Kabbalah, the deepest depths are also the highest depths, right? This is another, those of you who've been with us for a while know that I'm always finding that we always come back to one little principle from Sefer Yetzirah, which is that the beginning up here is wedged in the end, and the end down here is wedged in the beginning, skipping all the levels in between. These are both depths. It's called in the language of Hasidus, upper depth and lower depth, these depths. So the lower depth, the jewel in the ground, is the jewel which becomes the upper depth, the jewel of the crown. And that's an explanation, I'm sure there are others, of how it is that the love which is sunk within us, deep in the ground, actually includes the highest level of love, which is Abba B'Tainugim. I hope that's clear. Well, we'll start there. Is that not clear? And this is the end of today's Tanya. Anything else that's not clear or you want to comment on?
But why do we have to skip the middle?
You don't have to skip. No, and you haven't, and you shouldn't skip the middle. And he's going to talk about this. You're going to go back to those. Avos Olam is important. It's a ladder. To actually cultivate the experiences, one has to apply the middle levels, seichel, hisbaininus, meditation, contemplation. And we don't skip the middle. It's just that the lowest level is rooted in the highest level.
What was the author thinking? Was he thinking about Maimonides and anyone else in particular with these?
Pardon me? I missed the first part.
Who was the author thinking about, or like, is this sort of a response to anyone or anyone's writings, or
this that we're learning? You're asking?
Yeah.
This is authored by the Alter Rebbe, the Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad Hasidus. His book. Is that your question?
Yeah, and he was inspired by.
Oh, he was inspired by the whole tradition going back to Adam. This is a tradition that's given over from Adam to Noah to Abraham to and I'm skipping to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai of the Zohar, to the Arizal much later in the 1600s, I believe, yes, into the Baal Shem Tov, into the Mazrutcha Magid. This is Hasidus, and the Alter Rebbe represents the culmination of all that in what's called the Hasidus of Chabad, the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidus. This book is called the Written Torah of Hasidus.
The Tanya.
Yeah, the Tanya. It's called Torah Shebekasav Shebechasidus. It's the written Torah of Chasidus. This book is like a written Torah. You open it. This is the scroll of Chasidus that we're learning.
Awesome, thank you.
I mean, there is other Chasidus. There were the Baal Shem Tov had many Talmidim, and the most notable one that stays within as current survivors, meaning that they're active. Other branches of Hasidim come from the Mizrach and Magid. The Alter Rebbe branches from there, and Rav Nachum from Breslov comes from there. He has Hasidus Lakuti Maharan. Just to name one other, Lev Yitzchak from Berdichev, he comes from there. He has Kedusha. He has his book Kedushas Levi, but in Chabad, this is the start.
I can't believe I never asked this before, and I'm not sure. I understand that the Tanya was compiled after the Alter Rebbe's death, right? And so second part, wait. And the second part of this question is, what exactly does Tanya mean? Is it a reshma?
No, okay. Well, this is, the Tanya went through many. The Alter Rebbe originated. There were other editions. There were more writings afterwards, and its final edition was definitely after the original, to answer your first question. The second question, Tanya is a word that comes from Gemara. And it's why the book, this just generally, most people probably know this, but in case you don't, most of the Sforim, the books that we have from our holy Rebbeim, our holy rabbis, take the title from the first word of the book. So the first word of this book is Tanya. What does it say? Tanya. Tanya means we learn. We learn. And it says, and he brings...
Lilmud is to learn, so...
We learn, but it means, well, let me finish. We learn in a baraisa. Baraisa is a authoritative statement of the law that comes from outside the academy. The Mishnah comes from inside the academy. Those who were privileged or whatever had the schus to learn inside let's take Bavel in Babylon. There was an academy in Babylon, a Torah academy. There was a Torah academy back at the time of Noah, right? Way before Babylon. At the time of Noah, there was an academy of Shem Ve'ever, his grandson and son of Noah. And Abraham learned at that academy. Okay, but then there were those who were not privileged or for whatever reason didn't learn in the academy. They learned outside the academy. And the first is called Mishnah. And the second, outside the academy, is called Baraisa, Tanya. And Baraisa is an Aramaic word which means, Yasa means to come, and Bar means outside. We say the Hebrew word, the Aramaic word for Torah is oraisa, a light which comes from the outside, a light which comes, or Yasa, a light which comes. Baraisa is Bar, outside, it comes. So Tanya is an illumination, and this is a Baraisa. He starts with a Baraisa, which happens to be in the Baraisa in Gemara Nida, and I won't go into it now, but that's the beginning of the Tanya. That's why it's called Tanya. Is that the answer to your question? Hello?
Wait, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? Oraisa and Biraisa?
Sure.
Isa means to come?
Yasa in Aramaic means to come. Yasa.
Yasa?
Yasa. And or is light. So Torah is called Oraisa.
The light that comes?
Oraisa b'kutshabrichu kulachad. You may have heard that expression. Oraisa b'kutshabrichu kulachad. That's all Aramaic. Chad is Aramaic for echad, one. Oraisa b'kutshabrichu, the Torah, and the Holy One, blessed be He, kulei chad, are all one. Oraisa, so or is light, and Yasa is come. Torah is a light which comes, and that which comes is emanated. That's the Aramaic word for Torah. And then Baraisa, Bar means outside.
Chutz, yeah.
Chutz, yeah. And yasa means come. Bar is a statement of the halacha which comes from the outside of the academy.
Right.
In other words, from humans.
Pardon me?
It comes from Gemara Nida.
This particular baraisa that begins Tanya comes from Gemara Nida. There are thousands and thousands of baraisas in the Gemara. And baraisa is often brought in the Gemara to shed light or to try to give authoritative weight to a particular opinion. If the Mishnah has, let's say, two opinions, Hillel and Shammai, baraisas will come to see if we can weigh it one way or the other based on what's been taught outside the academy.
Okay. I hope this all answers her question. But thanks, Avi.
Well, does it answer your question? Yes?
Yeah, mine for sure, but the young lady.
Okay. Flo, you come up here, Flo. Is that, we haven't, is that your, does that answer your question? Flo?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So much.
Okay. Okay, we have something else that was hanging here? Any bechains, therefore, having learned what we just learned now, we're talking about, particularly having learned the Tanya that we learned for today, any particular things that we could say, okay, I've got a takeaway from today. Tanya, so what? What does it mean to us? What's it going to make? What's the difference in our lives today? Well, so I'll offer something that I'm thinking. I'm thinking, I'm not just sitting here waiting. I'm actually thinking, what difference does it make in my life today, right? So we've all got this natural love, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're surrounding ourselves here at this little Zoom enclave, because something is driving us to want to know more about this and to want to feel more about this. It's a natural love. It's a natural desire. And what I want to do with that, I want to bring it out into action. I want to act like a person who's connected with God in my daily life. And how will I do that? I know, because I go to work every day, and I know I'm going to have tremendous opportunities everywhere to bring something of godliness to the table in terms of tolerance, patience, empathy, kindness. So I'm going to take my natural love and utilize it today at work. And I guess I'll add one more thing, since today is Yesod Shabbat Teferes. I know I've been very negligent in getting these Sphira charts out here. I'm going to try to do it. But Yesod of Teferes, Yesod is foundation. Today is the foundational day of empathy and compassion. Teferes, empathy and compassion and beauty. Many other words, but it's a foundational day. So this is talk today. We talked about our foundation, our natural, our nature, what we're built upon naturally. Our foundation is Hashem. And let's all, and I will try to express it wherever we have the opportunity. All right. Till we meet again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.